The Earth, place in where there are more than 1,000 species of plants. As we know, the plants play an important role in our lives. Why? Because the plants provide to us the oxygen. Without it, it's impossible to have life. Plants are multicellular eukaryotes. Most plants live on land and use photosynthesis to make their own food. Scientists think that the early Charophyllicians lived in shallow water that sometimes dried out. Natural selection favored individuals that survive being dry. These individuals live long enough to reproduce. Their offspring also survived dry conditions. The first true plants probably grew along lakes and streams. Over time, the descendants or offspring live in places that were always dry. A seed is a storage container for the plant embryo. It has a hard coat and protects the embryo from drying out. The embryo can develop when conditions are right. Most liverworts live in damp environments. They get moisture from the soil. There are two basic forms, thallus and leafy. The thallus liverworts look like the lobes of a liver and give the group its name. Leafy liverworts have stem-like and leaf-like structures. Hornworts are found in tropical forests and along streams all over the world. The main plant body for the hornwort is flat and lobe-like. Mosses do not have true leaves. Instead, they have a leaf-like structure only on one cell thick. Some species have cuticles, and most have stomata. Mosses use structures called rhizoids to anchor themselves to soil, rocks, or tree trunks. Mosses are often the first plants to grow on bare land. They can survive in deserts and tundras by remaining dormant until water is available. Club mosses are the oldest living group of vascular plants, but they are not true mosses. Only the smaller species survived when the climate cooled. Whiskey ferns grow mostly in the tropics and subtropics. Horsetails grow in wetland areas and along rivers and streams. Their leaves grow in a circle around them. Ferns are the most successful members of this phylum. Seed plants have three special advantages over their seedless ancestors. Seed plants can reproduce without freestanding water. Seed plants produce pollen grains. Each pollen grain contains a cell that can become a sperm. Pollination occurs when pollen comes in contact with the female reproductive parts of the same plant species. Seeds nourish and protect plant embryos. A seed can remain dormant for months or even years while waiting for the right growing conditions. Seeds allow plants to disperse to new places. There are two types of seed plants. A gymnosperm is a seed plant whose seeds are not inside a fruit, and an angiosperm is a seed plant that has seeds enclosed in some type of fruit. Most gymnosperms have cones and are evergreen, such as pine trees. A woody cone is the reproductive structure of mostly gymnosperms. Male cones produce pollen and female cones produce eggs. There are three types of woody cones, for example the cycads, the ginkgo, and the conifers. The most diverse and common gymnosperms alive today are the conifers. These include pines, redwoods, spruce, cedar, fir, and juniper. Flowering plants. Angiosperms belong to a phylum of their own, called Anthophyta. A flower is the reproductive structure of these plants. A fruit is the mature ovary of a flower. During pollination, insects and other animals eat pollen or nectar, which is a sugary solution produced by some flowers. When it moves to another flower, some of the pollen brushes off onto the new flower. Animal pollinators directly transfer pollen from another flower to another. These ones are more efficient methods of pollination than having to rely on the wind. A flowering plant whose embryo has one seed leaf is called a monocot. Monocot has long, narrow leaves with parallel veins, flower parts that are usually in multiples of 3, and scattered bundles of vascular tissue in the stem. A flowering plant whose embryo has two cotyledons is called a dicot. Dicots have leaves with neck-like veins, flower parts that are usually in multiples of 4 or 5, and rings of vascular tissue in the stem. Roots contain vascular, ground, and dermal tissue systems. There are 4 main parts of a root. The vascular cylinder is in the center of the root and is made of xylem and pollen tissue. Root hairs are tiny projectors or dermal tissue cells above the root tips. The root cap protects the growing part of the root as it pushes through the soil. And the meristem is made of cells that are the source of new cells for root growth. Plants have 3 main organs, made of 3 tissue systems. Parenchyma cells. A parenchyma cell stores starch, oil, and water. It's the most common type of cell and is found throughout the plant. These cells have thin walls and large water-filled bucles on the middle. A collenchyma cells provide supports as the plant grows. These cells have either thin or thick walls. Most collenchyma cells are found in young tissues or leaves and shoots. A sclerenchyma cell is the strongest of the basic cell types. They are very stiff and tall because of the second cell wall that contains lignin. The dermal tissue system covers the outside of the plant and protects it. Epidermis is the dermal tissue made of leaf parenchyma cells. Epidermal cells may secrete a waxy material that becomes out cuticle on leaves and some stems. Dermal tissue made of dead parenchyma makes up the outer bark of wood plants. A fibrous root system has thin strands, most of which are the same size. These strands spread out beneath the soil surface. When roots seek out nutrients, they also absorb water. This is because mineral nutrients are usually dissolved in water. Stems support flowers and leaves, but they do other things too. Most of plant vascular system is in a stem, and stems can also store food and water. Stem growth. The meristem cells, which divide to create more cells, are active throughout the life of the plant. Growth that makes stem grow taller or roots grow longer is called primary growth. Growth that makes the stems and roots of woody plants wither is called secondary growth.